Hello, this is Dr. Gary Castleberry, Associate Professor and Program Director of Communication, Media, and Ethics, and I am here with another mini lecture for our public speaking students, an opportunity to talk about ways we can develop our public speaking skills, and we follow a logical process to help us develop it. In essence, a public speaking course allows us to peel the curtain back, right? To look at how the magic happens, okay? Much of it is an illusion if we want to carry that that example through with us. And the focus of this brief talk is going to be research, all right? And so let me back up, remind us of some steps that get us to this place of research, and then I'm just going to cover a couple of basic ways we can think about research and understand its fundamental role in any kind of serious communication that we want to present. It could be oral, right? In a speech situation. It could be written, right? In a document or a paper or a project or what have you. We want to become good researchers. It's part of the tenets of a liberal arts education. Understanding research, the value it plays in society and culture, whether you're going into the medical field, or athletic science, or pharmacy, or business. My goodness, learning to understand the value of research is going to help all of us, right? It's a skill set that transcends a course like public speaking. So let's get into it. But first, let's remind ourselves why we're researching and how we get to this point in the journey, and where we can think about it. Well, let's start and say you can research anytime, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily maximizing or making the best of your time. We want to be strategic about research efforts, and so that's going to fold into what I want to talk about today. So first, let's remember some steps that we've already crossed, all right? One of the things, of course, is when the topic is assigned, that's not something you're necessarily doing, but you're receiving. So you always want to review what that topic assignment looks like, because it's going to give you some specific rules and boundaries that might help you focus your ideas. Another way to help you focus, or rather generate ideas, is brainstorming. And as a nice callback to a previous talk, I mentioned idea journals as a way that you might brainstorm your ideas, your potential topics out loud, as in written form. We also described how you could create, whether it's hand-drawn or just simply pulling out your smartphone device, opening your notepad and jotting down ideas. You could do an idea, a thought bubble, right? Where you put a key thought, a key phrase, a key topic in the middle, kind of like a cloud, and then or a circle, whatever. Hey, we learn shapes at an early age, right? But then you bridge out the little sub thoughts, the subwords, the subcategories, the sub elements that go with that key term, that key phrase, that topic idea. And then you start to branch those sub ideas out. And then it gives you a sense of, okay, which ideas are strongest. So we have our brainstorming phase. Then that's what helps lead us to a topic selection phase. It's both meeting the criteria of the speech, presentation, or project, and it's also something we have brainstormed intentionally. Well, before we start the next physical portion that would be outlining, we find ourselves at the research pivot in the road, right? It's a fork in the road. It's a research fork. And let's talk about some ways to enhance that research. So here's a couple of key areas I'm going to highlight that I'm highly suggesting it. And I also, as always, refer you to our textbook, right? Or materials, right? Course materials, and stress the value of that. Stress the value of having our nose in a book from time to time, and at least give it that strategic skim. It's important. Information's there. And it's usually a pretty breezy read. But let's preview, rather, some key ideas. I'm going to talk about previewing in a future lecture. But I want to go over our own knowledge or experience, then transition to library research, I get on my pedestal and advocate for libraries, followed by using research purposefully, which I've teased already. The potential for interviewing others. Hey, we're in an interesting time where interviewing could be a skill we really develop. And then I'm going to finish with ways to maximize our research productivity. Okay, so let me start back with one's own knowledge or experience, right? That's the first area I want to talk about. And this is something we usually do right at the start of a course. That introductory speech often has something to do with ourselves and our storytelling mode, right? It's just getting us comfortable. And so we can think of that as a soft form of research. Or let's think about those of you that have an intentional major already in mind. You have a specific path you feel called toward in life, in your professional careers. Well, guess what? If you have that directionality for you, that's a plus. We're not in that could be a go-to area. That could be an area you can research and present information on right now in this context. It's not a left field course anymore. It's something you can use to enhance where you're already going. So you can think about that as an area you are familiar with, okay? But sometimes you can exchange facts and stats with personal experience. In other words, you can, if you find relevant information through the research process about your topic, and it relates to some kind of personal experience or personal story, sometimes these what we call personal anecdotes, these can benefit us in certain ways. We see this all the time in public speaking, right? Don't coaches use this in some of their motivational speeches? Or you may hear, ministry, clergymen, clergywomen, and so on, using anecdotes to reinforce some sort of theological tenets, right? So there is a place for that. We just don't want to over rely on only ourselves and what we already know to push to thrust our speeches forward, right? Because it's not going to give us a lot of momentum. All right. So let's talk about alternatives then. Let's shift gears to the next point I want to cover: library research. Libraries are excellent resources. Let's just know this. Let's agree upon it. In a physical class setting, we always institute a library day because not only are those resources that are so, they're unique to universities. We have unique libraries that give us additional access to areas we wouldn't otherwise know how to get to. They're filled with wonderful people. Librarians are some of the warmest people you will find on a collegiate campus a majority of the time. And they so often I encounter library staff, librarians, and so on, library sciences folks that really have a passion for helping people and connecting people to something that helps move them further. And that's why it's an important exercise. And so I bring that up because you could be in an on-ground setting where the library benefits you physically, but if you're approaching public speaking from an online setting, did I just say on ground? I meant on ground. But if you're approaching public speaking from an online setting, it's important to know the library exists in digital form. So visit the digital library. In fact, you'll probably find tools faster with navigating that digital library space. All right. And so the places you could be looking online include periodical databases, sort of the digitization of news media, newspapers, and so on. The catalog system has long since become digitized, so that all these resources are archived in meaningful ways. What you want to do is get familiar, set an egg timer, get in there on that online library, and allow yourself 30 minutes to dig around. So just to figure out, just click around. One of the best resources, so simple, so straightforward, in an online college library is the types of encyclopedias, and they differ from time to time, right? It's just like when stuff comes and goes on your Netflix account, right? It's there one day, it's not the next. and that urgency to see it. Sometimes like the encyclopedias that they have access to, one goes away and then another one comes up, right? They're always replacing it. But these databases can be helpful. Now, my field intersects communication studies, and media studies, as I have previewed in the past. And so for me, in my discipline, one of the helpful databases, right, where I can find an academic or research-focused search engine is Communication and Mass Media Complete, ProQuest, EBSCOhost, and I know all that sounds foreign. JSTOR is a great one in the humanities, but let's also recognize, just like the difference between what TV shows are on Amazon Prime versus Netflix versus Hulu, okay, we're relating here. Just as those have differences, and that's why we subscribe to different ones, different databases are going to have different types of research stored. Okay, so just like we spend different time, right, interacting with various media for leisure, for pleasure, we can think about these library databases as giving us different types of specialized information. But they can be very helpful information. They can be very useful, especially in an informative speech setting, and particularly for a persuasive speech setting. Those are the more robust types of speeches where we should be bringing in some kind of research. And so the library gives us a narrower channel with which to think about finding more trustworthy sources than simply clicking around on the internet. And we all know what happens when we start clicking around on the internet, right? Right? Zip, 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 zip. We're off, right? We're completely off track. We've lost it. We're over here. We're buying things on Amazon. We're bidding on eBay, right? We're downloading new mobile games. Like we're scrolling social media, and before you know it, like 7 days have passed, and you've done nothing, and you totally forgot you went to the library, and you just find this tab still open. And you're like, what is it? What is that? Who got on there, Grandma? But yeah, the online library can be a helpful space for us. Okay, using the internet. Let me talk about using the internet. Search engines, and this is the theme. I had already transitioned us to this conversation, but search engines, we want to be intentional and strategic when we do use them. Instead of just going to Google, there's a subsite within Google referred to as Google Scholar. Did we know this? All right, so we can look for ways to be more specific. Here's the best way to be specific when you're performing research. Just like we talked about when you create a brainstorming bubble and it's surrounded by all these other bubbles or clouds, and these should be like linked key terms to that topic. That's it. That's a list you can rely on when you're doing not just a search. You're not just Googling or Binging or whatever. You're performing a strategic search. All right. So that means using very focused key terms related to your topic to get more information about them. Simply browsing, not efficient. Be strategic, be highly focused. Rely on specialized sources like the university library, or there's often more credibility to government websites or perhaps .org websites. They tend to carry a little bit higher value. They're a little bit more policed than your average .coms or .whatevers, right? Also, keep this one in mind. If you find sources and it's off of a .edu, I mean, that's a score, right? It's going to be policed a little more careful, at least in theory. And this is just one of those items of information literacy that helps us understand what we're doing, where we're going. Here's some criteria to consider with an internet source. So you think you want to, we get to the persuasive speech and you want to make an argument. And so you go find sources. Let's try to avoid just finding sources that agree with us, right? That's not really how we make an argument. That's how we practice confirmation bias, to inject that term. So here's 3 criteria for evaluating internet resources. First, objectivity. What is the expertise of the author of said piece? And are they writing and speaking and communicating in a way that is objective, not subject? Subjective suggests bias. It suggests they're leading us in a way. Objectivity is what we're looking for. Second, if no author is listed, assess the organization or the sponsor of the article, right? Sometimes it can be a red flag if the author is not included in an article. You want to find information that's trying to be as transparent as possible. That's a key, right? That's a key in life. Let's transcend public speaking here for a second. Transparency is important, right? If everyone puts, if an organization, if a researcher is willing to put all the cards on the table to say, here are all the ways that I'm trying to be honest and speak and write and communicate with integrity and for the betterment of society, right? And not just try to win an argument or get ratings or whatever, or make a bunch of money, then it is more trustworthy of a source. Third, regardless of the author or authorship of a piece of research, check the recency of the document. And I'll talk about recency when I engage a discussion on introductions, right? And our strategic use of statistics, okay? Which is an important one, a tease, if you will. Interviewing can be a helpful technique if you have the time in advance. If you know a subject, an expert in an area, they could be a great insight into that knowledge base for you. So interviewing is a very helpful skill. Sometimes in the accelerated courses, or if you have a limited window to put your project together, interviewing could not work out. Maybe, people are busy. Life is busy. So interviewing is an excellent form of research gathering, but we don't always have the time or the personal resources to execute that and make it happen. All right. So fifth, maximize research productivity. Here we go. We'll talk about productivity here. First of all, begin your research early. It's never true. As soon as you get the topic, start researching it. Right. Don't wait. This is not a night before kind of activity. Oh, let me just throw it together the night before. It's like 5 to 6 sources, whatever. No, jump on that, because guess what? The first 5 things that show up in a Google search, in a random search, right, a Yahoo or whatever, it doesn't mean that's the best source. Oftentimes it means it's a paid source, right? It's the most visited source. That doesn't necessarily equate the perfect source for you. So research takes time. It takes effort. But don't burn yourself out. Don't burn yourself out. Like I said, set a timer. Give yourself little bursts, little research bursts, right? And just boop, 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 boop. And then go have fun. Do some other tasks. Do some other homework, right? Talk to some other people. Recharge. Come back. Do a little more research. All right? The great thing about let me plug it again, the online libraries is this is total armchair stuff, right? Kick back in the recliner, that soft area you're getting to rest upon, and do some research. Find some stuff. Create. It can be helpful to create a working bibliography as you go. That is like archiving your sources, right? So you find a good source, you should be sending yourself that link automatically. I'm on my smartphone all the time, doing lots of business. I can't help coming across all the information I do, and a lot of it interests me. So what do? I send it to myself. I'm constantly emailing myself articles. I think, I want to go find that later. Let me tell you a short story. Look at this. I'm demonstrating personal testimony in a public speaking situation. Within the last year, I started on a brand new research project from scratch. And I went from the initial sort of just throwing ideas around phase all the way to it being released as a publication. I'll send you a link if you like. But a publication form within about a 9-month max span. That's really fast. It's really fast for higher education. Don't worry. It was not scientific, right? You'd never get something sent through that fast. But one of the reasons that I could effectively develop that project so fast was every time I was finding an article, like a public interest piece, a think piece, an op-ed, a data piece on that topic, I was shooting it off to myself. I was shooting it off. Sending myself those links, and then I was archiving them in a Word doc if it was convenient, and I try not to print too much at all. Sometimes I was printing the strongest of those articles, like, because I was just absorbing information, going through research, and it really helped me on the back end. So create that bibliography as you go, because in an outline. It's important to, of course, have a cover page so that we know who's submitting the outline, but also have a references page at the end. Have a references page where you're citing those research sources as you go. That's why I say taking notes saves our time and energy. I just described taking notes in that process. I've also mentioned the idea journal. This is your own personal notes. This is your thought notes, and how taking notes as you go, it's going to save you time later, right? Maximize productivity when you think about your research project as you're researching. In other words, be intentional, right? Be intentional, okay? So that is and covers the research phase of public speaking. Oh, it was a doozy. It was a doozy. We covered a lot of information, and while it's not too terribly long, this video is not too terribly short either. But I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I wish you best of luck in your research endeavors, and my sincere hope is that our research is productive, fruitful, and helps lead to better, stronger, more impactful presentations, and not only in a public speaking setting, not only for this particular course or assignment, but in your future. Thank you for listening.